I thought I'd share with you another Sister Wisdom story today. It's called Sister Wisdom and the Gift of Time. Wisdom will multiply your days and add years to your life. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 11. Some things you don't see until you see. We bought a cute Japanese import car, more Lego than sleek machine, and we thought it was pretty rare and unique until we bought it. Then afterwards we saw them everywhere for a while. I first caught a glimpse of Sister Wisdom standing in the sea of glass, luminescent and glorious. Following that encounter, I saw her everywhere, songbird who never ceased her singing. It's interesting how quickly a new sound recedes into the white noise of every day. I didn't even notice that I missed her deeply until I missed her deeply. I didn't hear her, but she never stopped singing her invitation. I've been thinking about what it would be like if she did stop, what the universe would sound like without her song weaving the threads of meaning into the fabric of life, whether time itself would stand still. I left Daniel, knowing that Sister Wisdom had laid a path for me into Ecclesiastes, a wisdom book written by one called Qoheleth, or the Gatherer, Assembler. I set out into the book looking for the path, and it didn't take long before I realized I was lost. I turned to the wisdom of scholars, but nothing helped. I didn't want to exchange the possibility of knowing for just information. There was something about the way Qoheleth wrote that resonated with me. At times he reminded me of Smeagol from the Tolkien tales. He spoke this way and then that way. He rants, complains, and waxes lyrical. And as I read, I'm reminded of my interior conversations when I can't find the North Star. Like when I'm trying to make sense of life without turning towards Sister Wisdom singing. Or like when I'm found offering my imagination to an offence I'm carrying, losing time and clarity in the process. Time and clarity. It's strange. I've had more of the first this year and less of the second. 2 years ago, the Father spoke a simple directive to me. He said, I want you to be thin enough to slip through an hourglass. There was no context or explanation to aid me, and my first honest response was to promise to quit eating cinnamon buns with my whole heart. Maybe I'd even start running or go full keto for fun. But the Father kept smiling at me and said no more about the matter, and I kept hold of the carbs and the instruction I was given, and progressed no further in my understanding of how either related to me. And so this remained until autumn 2020, the head of the year. I have notes to myself everywhere, referencing the words Qoheleth wrote. In my journal, my phone, and my tablet, words but no inspiration. I don't know where Sister Wisdom has led me, and I'm more aware of Pete Seeger hovering around me singing his song than I am of hers. I'm haunted by Qoheleth's description of Hedel, meaning breath, but specifically the exhale, the waste product from breathing, stark in contrast to the Ruach, the life-giving spirit, the breath we inhale as a gift. And I'm stuck here, until without any warning, Sister Wisdom appears as I'm sorting washing. She's holding out an hourglass and a tiny bit of clarity. Then she's gone. It's like catching the scent and giving myself up to adventure again, like Jesus has just passed this way. So I stop and sit. An hourglass. Now my imagination is a mashup of steampunk and Disney's Aladdin. I remember the Father's words to me, and I wonder if Sister Wisdom will show me what to do with them. A YouTube video of an artist blowing glass holds my attention. The movements are so graceful. Fire heats a glass reed until it glows a sunset. Hands move and the Hedel fills the reed. The thin tube of glass is formed into 2 bulbs of a sand timer. An hourglass. Perfectly proportioned and beautiful. I ask the Ruach to fill me and shape me as I inhale. I want to see. I watch the hourglass as it is created. Polished sand encased in heated sand become glass. Time materialized in matter. so we can watch it as it passes. I begin to read about the origin of these timers. There are many stories about who invented them. Some say they were first created in Babylonian times, and some say they were created by a French monk in the 8th century, and I'm intrigued by the first appearance they make in church art. In 1337, Lorenzetti painted Temperance holding an hourglass in his hands. I look at this picture, and it reminds me of a God often preached in the pulpit. Once time is easily measurable, it can be divided. And once divided, it can be apportioned, and value can be given to how it should be spent, and attention can be drawn to how fast it passes. Father Time is often depicted holding a scythe and an hourglass, a quasi-papa figure, one who watches, measures, and calls time. I realise I'm getting cold now, as I'm seeking wisdom, finding fear. I don't want to meander into fruitless thoughts, so I open Ecclesiastes 3 and I read, "There is a time for everything." Before I can read any more, I feel a soft pressure on my forehead. She is here. I close my eyes. I find myself sitting with her in the bottom bauble of the hourglass. Sand falls on me like rain. But I'm not afraid or uncomfortable. It feels like soft kisses. As the last grains fall, I feel myself lifted and turned upside down. Again, it falls like snow, smooth and caressing, exfoliating layers of skin, softening calluses and cleaning me. I turn. I move. I am not static. I am maturing, and I'm shedding, and I'm becoming. As the motion clears my mind, I begin to run the sand through my hands. I realize this disrupts the flow, and thus the time. And I hear the words of Kohelet. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search, and a time to give up, and a time to keep, and a time to throw away, and a time to tear, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. Now I'm wondering. Kohelet writes words he has gleaned, words he has lived, words from all he has observed in the passing of his days. His words carry a sound, a sorrow, a frequency that often feels jaded and dulled somehow by experiences I can only imagine. Did he lose Sister Wisdom at times along the way? Do his words paint for me a picture of the best I can conjure up without her song, her company, and her insight? Our wisdom, and we all have wisdom, because we are created by wisdom, is only Hevel if we aren't breathing directly, the Ruach, the source. Without relationship with Sister Wisdom, all we can do is turn to whatever the season brings, to accept death when it comes, and love, war, sowing, and reaping. It is written that Sister Wisdom adds to your days. She creates time. So it seems to me that walking with her, we don't just turn toward what is coming, we create. We speak peace over the wars that threaten. We speak life over death that holds no consolation. We meet every inclination to hate with an invitation to love that we were given first. Kohelet. He reads as one who had weathered many seasons, one who carried the weight of disappointment and loss, offence. Did these stories sing louder in his ears than the sweet song Sister Wisdom sings? And is that the key that Kohelet is holding out for me? The key to being thin enough. He has shown me what it is to grow fat with disappointment, and that I must shed every story I tell myself about life, about my experiences that whisper slander against the goodness of God. Every whisper that he is not enough. Then I can slip through the hourglass. And then time is not my master. It is a gift. It flows like the tides. It expands and it contracts. In time, I'm invited to grow up, and suddenly it feels so simple. An invitation to take the authority that belongs to kings and to rule. I realize that I'm still sitting on the sand. The silence and these thoughts are lingering. I know what to leave behind, but what should I carry forward? Sister Wisdom reaches out, takes hold of my right hand. She stretches out my arm, and with her finger, she writes 2 questions on my skin. They're the words of Jesus, and I can still see them today. They say, "Who do you say that I am? And do you love me more than these?" I understand. These questions are the path to maturity. They will keep me thin. Time is gifted for the adventure of answering, and everything else is Revel.